This is Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall. CJAD 800.
That is James Mennie. He is over at the Montreal Gazette. So, Jim, it's all done now. We have a new interim leader. Well, an old interim leader, if you will, for the provincial Liberals, Marc Tanguay. What do you think?
You know, it's kind of funny because on the one hand, Madame Anglade left, the party and politics on Monday. And, there's part of me that says, well, could you guys, could there be like a decent interval? Can you at least wait until next Monday, to start doing this? And in fact, no, they're hitting the ground running, which to a certain extent, I think bodes well for the Liberal Party, which, quite frankly, seems to have been spinning its wheels for way too long during the campaign, even well before the campaign. It's clear there is, at least within the caucus, a desire to turn the page on the Anglade era. But the interesting thing, there's two elements that have yet to be resolved. One is we've got to find out what the criteria are going to be for someone who wants to seek the leadership of the party. Specifically, the buy-in. I mean, most leadership contests now, if you want to become leader of the party, you have to bring a certain amount of money as a deposit, and it's usually not a princely sum, but a serious amount of cash. And you also have to be willing and able to sign up, a certain designated number of members. And that, more than anything else right now, is the question that the Liberals have to ask themselves: is there enough in the Liberal inventory to still get people to turn around and sign up, pay money, become a member, become interested? I have a sneaking suspicion that today, at least, if you were to ask somebody what does the Quebec Liberal Party stand for, you'd get a blank stare whether you are asking that question in Rivière-du-Loup or Côte Saint-Luc. So, yeah, there's got to be a certain an identity crisis and an identity solution. But I also find it extremely fascinating that here we are, like I say, she only left on Monday. And not only is Marc Tanguay, who is he's a veteran MNA, not only is he the interim leader, which I guess is necessary to at least for those poor 10 MNAs who just got on the boat now and have no idea where it's sailing. But you also have André Fortin, you also have Monsef Deraji, and that's just today. They've expressed interest in seeking the leadership. And there'll probably be more, except there's only 19 people in the caucus. But, if we see this rate of interest, if we see this kind of desire to reinvent or perhaps reestablish the Quebec Liberal Party, I think that's the first big step that needs to be taken. And if they pull it off, good for them, because what they don't want to wind up doing is sort of becoming enmeshed in the same kind of internal bickering, the same kind of, ideological head bashing that has essentially turned the Parti Québécois into a political museum piece. So the future of the party is quite literally at stake. How soon can it be resolved? How soon can it be set on a new course? As I say, I don't know, at least the name yet of the person who's going to be put in charge of the leadership campaign of establishing the rules, but the sooner the better. And clearly, if today is any indication, the sooner the better seems to be the policy for a lot of people who are seeking the leadership. Will we hear more names before the weekend? Who knows? I'm guessing, though, we'll be hearing more names certainly by next week.
It's funny the way you describe it, because you're right. It's only been a week barely since Dominic Anglade called it a day. You think the body is still, as they say, warm. And here they are. But by the other, the other sort of half of this equation is the longer you wait, and you're right, I think the longer you're out of the public eye or the public thought, the worse it is for a party that's already fading from public thought to begin with. So I don't think they really had a choice here. So maybe this was a good move, Jim.
I think it is, and I think that and I've mentioned this in the past. I think if there's the big question is how do they connect in the regions? How do they get themselves to stop being the Liberal Party of Montreal, or indeed the Liberal Party of Western Montreal? And I think the biggest weakness that is clearly exhibited by the CAQ is that from day one, François Legault has traded on fear. Quebecers are under attack. Identity is threatened. French is about to disappear. And yet, believe it or not, guys, before 2018, Liberals used to have plenty of MNAs right across the province. They were very, very healthily represented in the regions. So I think perhaps if whoever ends up winning, if they change the channel, they change the frequency, and they stop talking less about fear and more about hope and opportunity, more about the potential Quebec does have when it isn't picking fights, over constitutional niceties with Ottawa, Quebec really can get things done and did get things done. So it's going to be an interesting few months, but I don't know. Maybe I'll take a line from you, Aaron. Maybe I'm being naive here, but I have a sneaking suspicion you're going to see a recycled, if not necessarily rejuvenated Liberal Party. And who knows, maybe the real face-off will be between do we go back to who we were? And there was a version of the Liberal Party that for some reason, they believed in individual rights. They believed in being a part of Canada. And somehow they kept electing MNAs into the regions of Quebec. Either keep that or really transform themselves into something. But as I say, I think with the experience of Dominic Anglade, you've got to be very careful about where you're going to take the party. And if you do take it someplace else, take it one place. Don't take it 5 different places at once, because we saw how that worked out in the election campaign.
And what's going to happen in St. Henry, St. Anne? There'll be a by-election. When's that going to happen?
Oh, well, you ask Francois Legault. He's got 6 months to call one. I'm sure he's not in a huge rush. He'll probably give it, obviously he'll wait till the new year. I don't think there's a real pressing hurry to have an MNA sit there, and especially you're not going to send the good people of that riding to a by-election in the middle of the Christmas or New Year's holidays. So maybe look at February. Don't make it too onerous, and who knows? They may keep the seat. I don't think so. I think you'll see that seat flip. I know Quebec Solidaire is making noises about, we have another chance on Montreal.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure about that, but you never know. With the way things are going, if that, how can I put it, if that confusion coupled with silence that we've been seeing exhibited by the Liberal Party continues, I think the CAQ has got a shot at that riding. If all of a sudden we see the Liberal Party come out swinging, know perfectly well what it wants to be when it grows up, and indeed can convince Quebecers that it has grown up, who knows? The Liberals might take it back and put it in the fold. It remains to be seen. The other big question right now, and you heard that in the newscast, is that M. Tanguay says he has reached out to Mary-Claude Nichols and to get her to come back into the caucus. I think she's in a bit of a tough spot right now. I think if she leaps back right away, this will be perceived as not being so much a matter of principle as one of personalities. So who knows? But once again, there's no rush. Whether you have 20 MNAs or 19 MNAs in a 125-seat legislature, I don't think is a very, very big issue. But on the other hand, I think the other message that has to be sent to Mme. Nichols, and perhaps it's one that Dominique Anglade tried to convey on her last day when she announced her resignation, the leaks have to stop. If you want to go in the time machine and go back to a previous Liberal Party, keep your mouth shut. If you've got complaints, you by all means express them, but don't leak them to the press. That is something the PQ excelled at, was stabbing itself in the face over and over again in the media. We saw the results here with this latest iteration of the Liberal Party. So, yeah, I think the first and foremost lesson that has to be taught is party discipline. And if that, I don't know, I got the feeling Tanguay might be the guy to do that, but if he isn't, I think all bets are off. The idea that, you can take your complaints out in public, that was never the Liberal way. And whether you like it or not, that Liberal way saw them running the province for almost half a century.
I like the idea in that writing, and I realize it's kind of far-fetched, but, Quebec Solidaire, Jim, unless I'm wrong, if they get that 12th seat, they're officially declared a party. That brings extra money, extra weight in the National Assembly. And
Absolutely.
then, coming up the rear, as you will, Eric Duhem, who doesn't have a seat, would love to be in there. He could run in that riding, too. Well,
don't forget, lest we forget, Mme. Anglade did win the riding, and she didn't eke through, but that said, people don't like it. I mean, look what happened with Philippe Couillard when he resigned the morning after the election, that riding went to the CAQ. So, and it had gone quite favorably, quite heavily to Philip Couillard. It'll depend, I guess, on the good people of the riding. But bottom line, I think in the end, it's going to be about the product. And if the Liberals can tell the people in St. Henry, saying, listen, this is who we are now, this is what we're about, there's no confusion, so here's your choice.
Yeah.
I think if you can do that, you've got a chance. But once again, it'll depend on Francois Legault when he wants to call it.
I just don't know there's any name recognition factor, whoever they decide to run in that riding, whoever that's going to be. That was an issue when they ran people here, who worked in the back rooms and no one knew who they were. So how would it work in a riding where she stepped down?
But here's the other thing. There are a lot of, how can I put it, former MNAs who may rethink their decision to leave politics now that Madame Anglade is gone.
Ah, okay.
Well, that's interesting.
There is that. James Mennie. Jim, thank you.
Adamant.